Welcome everybody. I'm very happy to introduce this stakeholders roundtable EPTRI meeting. This is also the final meeting of the funded project and a starting point for the future EPTRI development. The title of the presentation is the EPTRI project and the future of pediatric research. Two words about the project. It has been founded by the European Commission under the Horizon 2020, the InfraDev 1 call, coordinated by Consorzio per Valutazioni Biologiche and Farmacologiche, started 2.5 years ago, involving 29 partners from 21 European and non-European countries. 16 were from member states and 5 not member states, and involving during the context analysis phase, as we will see, more than 250 research units, candidate as EPTRI providers for the future research infrastructure. EPTRI main goal is to accelerate the pediatric drug development processes from medicine discovery, biomarkers identification, and preclinical research to developmental pharmacology, age-tailored formulations, and medical devices. This will allow to facilitate the translation of the acquired new knowledge and scientific innovation into pediatric clinical studies, phases, and medical use. The project has been characterized by 3 main phases. The context analysis phase aimed to map and analyze the pediatric research framework, the needs of the potential users and the service providers to be included in the future European pediatric translational research infrastructure, as well as the possible gaps to be covered. In particular, recognition has been performed of the available expertise and high-end apparatus of the research units in Europe and not European countries, which can be accessible through the future EPTRI for providing services to pediatric research. Also, the user needs have been depicted during the EPTRI context analysis through a large survey that has enabled to correctly identify the reference community potentially requiring pediatric research services. The second one, named operational phase, was aimed to design the different components of EPTRI, including the governance and business model, the strategies for interaction with national authorities, the ways of collaboration with the existing research infrastructure, and the other pediatric initiatives, the IT architecture and the operational models, the services to be provided at central, platform, and research unit levels, and finally, the last phase has been the feasibility one, in which selected pilot experiences have been proposed simulating the operations of the future research infrastructure. During the context analysis phase, a large pan-European mapping has been performed, which allowed to identify more than 250 research units willing to collaborate with EPTRI as services providers. The survey allowed also to detect the main gaps that EPTRI can cover and have been addressed as priority in its design, such as the dispersion of the research efforts in terms of competencies, equipment, facilities which exist but do not receive continuous and structural support. Moreover, the innovative technologies as new diseases, models, biomarkers, innovative study design are few applied in the pediatric setting, and therefore children are often excluded from the advantages of the scientific innovation, such as new medicinal products. EPTRI will be based, this picture is the general figure of the new research infrastructure. Showing EPTRI in its entire design. It will be based on an hub and spoke model with a central hub and several spokes. The research units identified during the EPTRI context analysis phase will be aggregated according to both geographical distribution in national nodes, named national EPTRI infrastructures, and in scientific fields of activities, named thematic research platforms, as shown in the figure. Through the integration of research organizations in both national nodes and thematic research platforms, EPTRI will be able to offer high-value services to the scientific community that will keep pace with evolving technologies and procedures, and that will be aligned with the demands of the pediatric community. At the end of the funded projects, a conceptual design report has been prepared and will be submitted to the European Commission soon. Next step will be the application for the inclusion of EPTRI in the ESFRI 2021 roadmap, whose deadline is next September 9, as well as in several national roadmaps, hoping this will reflect soon on very significant improvements on national and European policies for research and innovation towards better children's health. This is representing the next InfraEA project. During the ESFRI evaluation phase for the inclusion in the roadmap, EPTRI will start the preparation phase. And to support this huge effort, an application has been submitted last May under the InfraEA 2020 call for proposal. This marks an important step forward for EPTRI and will allow to start delivering services to the pediatric research community and provide a blueprint to close the gap between innovative technologies and pediatric drug development processes using an original scientific approach that is pediatric patient-centered. And the future EPTRI integrating activities, the name of the next project, will combine in a synergistic way the three activities foreseen by the call. Networking activities that will be aimed to strengthen the coordination and integration in order to enlarge the EPTRI community outside the current involved countries, promote the participation of representatives from industry, public administrations, and other stakeholders, including patients and citizens, contribute to consolidate the EPTRI governance and increase the impact of the research infrastructure. Second area of activities, wide and efficient transnational access to advanced research services will be foreseen and managed according to the European Charter for Access to Research Infrastructure. These activities are aimed to improve capacity and quality and integrate the services provided by the research organizations participating in the future project. And third, joint research activities that will be aimed to develop services enabling basic, preclinical, and translational pediatric research, and have been selected according to criteria of feasibility, costs, excellence, and expected impacts. The future of pediatric research can be soon depicted under the new European pharmaceutical strategy, considering that the pharmaceutical sector is a major contributor to the European economy as a knowledge-intensive sector. The global pharmaceutical market is estimated to grow, of course, in the next years, offering a growth potential for European industries. Key issues, innovative technologies such as artificial intelligence, as well as access and analysis of data collected from clinical experience, real-world data, are changing the way products are developed and have the potential to transform therapeutic approaches and business models. The Commission will launch a pharmaceutical strategy for Europe to continue ensuring the quality, safety, and efficacy of medicines and reinforcing the sector's global competitiveness. EPTRI, in this context, can play a crucial role in addressing the pediatric challenges and submitted its point of view during the consultation phase just ended last Tuesday, 2 days ago. As stated, there is a need to build an holistic, patient-centered, forward-looking European pharmaceutical strategy which covers the whole life cycle of pharmaceutical products, from scientific discovery to authorization and patient access. And this is particularly true and challenging for the pediatric patients. Effectively, in the pediatric population, even the pandemic situation has confirmed the huge lack of appropriate medicines tailored for children. The chronic shortage of pediatric medicines available for less than 50% of cases when compared to medicines for adults in Europe has proven to increase the risk of undercured pediatric patients affected also by COVID-19 and its complications. In Europe, based on the different therapeutic areas, from 30 to 50% of medicines are not available for children due to the lack of therapeutic indications, appropriate dosages, and/or lack of appropriate formulations, as you know very well. Another barrier is unequal access to medicines. The innovative and promising therapies do not always reach the patients due to market failures. This is further true for the pediatric market, exposed to many technological and ethical challenges that often limit commercial interest, especially if the widespread use of the off-label approach does not limit revenues for companies. Children are indeed orphan of appropriate and innovative treatments, while the majority of the products used in childhood have been produced for adults use and are prescribed and administered based on physicians' own experience rather than on the results of ad hoc pediatric research. Moreover, medicines are often not available in a pharmaceutical form suitable for all the children's age group. So innovation does not always correspond to public health and health systems needs. Therapies or medical technologies for major unmet needs are not developed because of science limitation or lack of interest for industry to invest. In addition, the lack of a common understanding of the concept of unmet medical needs between stakeholders and decision makers contributes to this problem. Moreover, the regulatory framework may not be keeping pace with important scientific and technological advances, such as gene and personalized therapies, smart health applications, medical technologies, including artificial intelligence, that are transforming the landscape and becoming increasingly integrated as part of the overarching therapies. What to do? The big challenge is the European Union has the tools, infrastructure, and researchers needed to take the lead in medicines research and innovation for the development of treatments and medical devices. Notwithstanding the huge potential, pediatric and also rare disease research efforts remain particularly dispersed and disaggregated, and are often excluded from the stronger supportive actions. The European Commission should assure that these improvements are made available and accessible to all citizens and patients, in particular to vulnerable groups like pediatric population and rare diseases patients. In this context, children are orphaned twice. A recent publication shows indeed that barriers are common for pediatric and rare diseases medicines, and the main obstacles have not been overcome. The designated orphan drugs stop early and often do not reach marketing approval, since there is no transition to the clinical phases and then to the market. Moreover, less than 30% of pediatric investigational plans, PIPs, are completed to market a pediatric medicine. In the pediatric field, investment in technology are very scarce, especially from the commercial sponsors. In addition, to perform clinical studies according to the current standard methodology, controlled and comparative large trials, it's very difficult, quite impossible. New methodological approaches are absolutely needed. So this proposed new approach should enable to promote a European strategy for development to access mainly based on two assets: a focus on translational research-driven studies to allow good ideas born in academic and non-profit laboratories to be implemented and therefore become attractive also for commercial sponsors for further development. And second, the increase of the public-private partnership opportunities to avoid blocks or failures on the market. This is our proposed approach, and we think that the EPTRI could help to ensure Europe's supply of safe and affordable medicines to meet patients' needs and support the European pharmaceutical industry to remain an innovator and world leader, so contributing in building the new pharmaceutical strategic framework. We need timely access to patients, including children. We look for economic sustainability of pediatric research. EPTRI, being a new establishing reliable European-wide infrastructure, will be able to modify the current landscape, helping the development of excellent science and related institutions and improvement of the economic and industrial capacity of the European Union, positively impacting on the patient populations and their caregivers. EPTRI can help ensuring the provision of safe and affordable medicines to European patients and really meet patients' needs. EPTRI will transform the current panorama, since research activities done by disaggregated pediatric research infrastructure will be promoted and made available as services open to the large pediatric research community, as well as to private subjects or companies interested in developing pediatric medicines. EPTRI services will implement in the pediatric field innovative methods and technologies which have not been already included in the routine process to develop new drugs and other health products for children. EPTRI will close the gap between innovative technologies and pediatric drug development processes using an original scientific approach that is pediatric patient-centered. So this is the aim, the main goal of this initiative, and to leave you with some final thoughts and hopes, I can just conclude saying that EPTRI, in several years, working and putting together all these great efforts, can really contribute to create an integrated pediatric system that will be interconnected to existing landmark research infrastructure and relevant clinical research networks, able to enhance research in all the specialized sectors involved in the pediatric drug development processes, and to contribute to underpin pediatric clinical studies in collaboration with the C4C and other relevant pediatric networks and initiatives. And this is the main aim of also of the today stakeholders roundtable, discussing with the other networks, pediatric initiatives, rare diseases, stakeholders, landmark research infrastructure, policymakers, and so on, in order to put all the efforts together to strengthen pediatric research efforts. And the adoption of pediatric-oriented tools and competencies will have a multiple impact on the whole research chain, from drug discovery to preclinical and clinical phases. The application of novel therapeutic approaches to the pediatric population will require the adaptation of the current standards, models, resources, and procedures in all drug development phases. At the end, EPTRI will bring changes in procedures, equipment, human well-trained resources, and investments in these sectors. EPTRI is also expected to positively impact on the social and ethical aspects, since it will address the theme of basic, translational, and preclinical research for a vulnerable and neglected population, as pediatric patients' population is. Thanks a lot, everybody, for attending my introduction as EPTRI coordinator. I'm now giving the ground to Pirko Lepola. Pirko is the chair of the EMPREMA, the European Networks for Pediatric Research at the European Medicines Agency. I'm very happy that Pirko accepted to have a presentation during this stakeholder meeting, in line with our idea and effort to link together all the pediatric networks, initiatives to strengthen all our efforts. So Pirko, thanks a lot. The ground is yours.
Oh, thank you, Donato, and welcome everyone here online. And I really thank you this possibility to speak and present this short presentation. I will tell you something about shortly about EMPREMA itself and a few slides about the current landscape of the other networks and initiatives in Europe. I work basically at the Helsinki University Hospital Department of Children and Adolescents, and there I run the national network, the Finnish Investigators Network for Pediatric Medicines, and since 2007 I'm the executive secretary of that network, and also I'm the general secretary of the Nordic network we have invented in 2014. And before this current chair position, which I was elected the last year, I've been working in a GRIP project, the Global Research in Pediatrics, which was a EU-funded framework program. And then I work also with the upcoming, we will see the presentation of these also, but the PED-CRAN project and C4C project, together with many of the listeners. And the next slide, please. Yes, this is just a disclaimer that many of these views I will present are quite much of my own, but many of the main and the basic information about the EMPREMA is provided by the EMPREMA and EMA. So this is the situation now. But many of the presentation I have a little bit loaned from the public domains or public presentations or our initiative presentations, so I've a little bit modified. Next slide, please. So this is the contents very shortly, briefly looking the background. I'm not talking about the pediatric regulation as it is. I'm just referring what is the current situation of that relating to pediatric clinical trials, and also then representing the EMPREMA itself, how it works and what it do and what it does not do, and the shortly look of this landscape overview. Next present. And the pediatric regulation, everybody knows in this webinar, the background for all these, also for the EPTRI, and it has been almost 13 years now. It came into the force, and the main goal of the regulation was to facilitate the development and accessibility of medicinal products for the pediatric population. This is kind of a health, general health impact for the European Union population. And after this regulation, we have achieved quite a lot. I will show you that shortly. But the main goal is that, could you press the key so I will have the animation there. Thank you. So as you know, the majority of the pharmaceutical products are produced and taken into the markets by the pharma industry, and therefore it represents the majority of conducting the pediatric clinical trials in Europe. It's approximately 75% of this the part of the new medicines coming from the industry, and there's only minority coming from the academic groups and academic research projects. As we know, it's fairly and very expensive and challenging area for the academic groups and costly. This regulation, as we know, it's very much related after the US equal legislation, and the best match was this Best Pharmaceuticals for Children Act, which has a almost equal or similar reward or incentive system, and replacing the obligations which have been set for the industry. This is kind of a requirement to make pediatric investigation plans and research all new medicinal products in pediatric population if that is assessed as safety and needed in children by the pediatric committee in Europe, in European Medicines Agency. Next slide. And the progress report after 10 years by the European Commission and EMA was that, in fact, yes, there was quite many of new medicines achieved based on the regulation and the implementation of the regulation. Over 260 new medicines or medicinal formulations suitable for children. These were authorized between the period of 10 years evaluation, and also there was an achievement regarding these pediatric investigation plans, which are required from the industry, and the number of PIPs, the completed ones, was increasing during that time, and 141 were completed of the submitted PIPs by the industry, and over 60% were actually finalized. I will show you quickly shortly the actual current numbers of the PIPs. And the progress regarding the clinical trials itself, including children, all the children in the EPTRI database, all those trials which have participants below 18 years of age are regarded as a children and as a pediatric trials. So these numbers have increased during this 10-year period by 50%. Despite it's quite low, it has always been, before the pediatric regulation, the percentage of the pediatric trials was really low, much under 10%, but this is now increasing, and it has reached, I don't know exact number now, we will see the numbers, but it's more like 15%, and we are expecting to be more like 20% in the near future. Next slide. So this is the current situation from May data. So the new PIPs agreed by Pediatric Committee, it has been over 1,200. This is the cumulative number since beginning. And decisions on PIP modifications, because some of the pediatric investigation plans need to be modified by the sponsors. Those are, the number is almost 2,000, or a little bit over 2,000. And then there are full waivers, which means that almost 1,000, a little bit over 800 products are that kind of products that does not need to be investigated in pediatric population, because these are either not needed or not safe to in that population, so they will get the full waivers, and that is only then for the adults. And you can see the numbers here. The 2020 numbers are now the number is 96, but it will probably increase. But there is a little slowdown during the past couple of years. Let's hope that it will not be like this in the future, so that we could go back to the track and have these more. The average number of pediatric clinical trials generally in Europe has been around 400. It's about 10% of all trials, a little bit 4,000 trial, including adult trials also. So an average on 10%, but hopefully we will see this will go back up again. Next slide, please. So this is the May data also about the pediatric subject numbers in the new pediatric clinical trials outside the European Union and inside the European Union. And here you see the numbers, like this year's numbers so far is 20,000, but hopefully this will increase at least to the level what was last year. But you can see that the 2018 numbers are a little bit higher, including almost half outside the European Union. So let's see how the development goes, but looking, these numbers are not so good currently, so we will need much more support for this trial conduction, so we can have these numbers higher. Next slide, please. And then few words about this Imprima network. Can you press the key there? There's this animation. Okay, this is the European network of pediatric research at the European Medicines Agency. Is kind of a permanent structure which is based on the pediatric regulation itself. There was this Article 44 which says that the agency needs to build and establish a network of research networks, investigators and centers with recognized expertise in performing clinical trials in pediatric population. So this is based on the legal requirement setting up this network. It was officially launched in 2011. And the main mission statement is that Imprima will facilitate studies in order to increase the availability of medicinal products authorized for use in pediatric population. Next slide, please. We have a website there at the EMA, but it's a little bit cumbersome, the path to the website, but you can find it either by just writing the Imprima to the browser or just following the road at the EMA website, first to the partners and networks, and then networks. There you can find the Imprima. Contacts for the Imprima, there is a central email. You may email and ask more information and collaborative requests through this email. And there is a much more information there. Next slide, please. The key operation of Imprima is, as I mentioned already a little bit, is to facilitate the dialogue of networks with the pediatric committee, because the pediatric committee is kind of the scientific part of the Imprima. And of course, we want to facilitate the dialogue between the national competent authorities because that's the natural part of the EMA. We want to link together the existing networks. I will show briefly the list of current networks shortly. And then the Imprima can provide expertise and access for these infrastructures and for the industry also, because the industry is the main stakeholder of Imprima. Imprima can define the consistent and transparent quality standards between the networks and the commonly accepted and harmonized procedures. We have active working groups creating guidance and recommendations for all stakeholders. We define strategies and especially the coordination group will have these as they try to resolve some major challenges, and this is mainly done through the working groups. And of course, the one main thing is to communicate with external stakeholders. Next slide, please. So the stakeholders, all these listed, the biggest stakeholder is naturally the industry, also the pharmaceutical and medical device and the CROs. But the center of all these is the patient and parents, and they have the representation in the PDCO and also in our working groups and as a members of IMPRIMA. We collaborate with national competent authorities, ethics committees. We can have the communication with pharmacists, nurses, and of course the research networks and alert societies, because the research network is the core of this IMPRIMA. Next slide, please. So what we do through IMPRIMA, we share best practices and expertise with other centers and networks. This is really important part, because through IMPRIMA we can have a lively discussion and experiences can be shared, and we can learn from those from various part of the expertise. It's possible to provide guidance and connection between the stakeholders, facilitate the communication with the PDCO, which is the very central integrated partner part of the IMPRIMA. We can facilitate communication between the various groups, and regularly there are updated news and communication of the, for example, the responses to public competent authority consultations, both the EU and US. And these can be shared to all members through the agency and the secretariat. The secretariat is also working and supporting with the ad hoc working groups. Currently, we have 6 active working groups on several topics. Not going into those very detailed, but you can find those from the website. IMPRIMA organizes meetings. It's possible to organize also the ad hoc meetings for the working groups if needed, facilitating access to small and medium enterprises for collaboration. The big one has been so far the annual workshop for all stakeholders. It has been organized at the agency premises, but due to the corona situation, it will be probably now in this year virtual, like this meeting. Then we have regular meetings for the coordinating groups, and there is a regular newsletter for stakeholders, and the secretariat support, and the access also the European Commission framework programs. Next slide, please. But what the IMPRIMA does not do, it's good to remember that the IMPRIMA, as a part of the European Medicines Agency, it does not fund studies, it does not act as a CRO or manage studies, and it does not decide on research priorities, because the priorities are set. This is the responsibility of the member states, the Commission through the community programs, and of course for each individual networks. Next slide, please. The membership of IMPRIMA is based on the certain recognition criteria. I'm not going to go through all the recognition criteria, but there are 6 main areas of the quality standards for the self-assessment for the networks, fulfilling of these, and there are a set of minimum criteria and sub criteria under these, and the annually made self-assessment. Next slide, please. This is the current situation of our networks. We have these 4 categories of networks as members, and the first category is fulfilling all the minimum criteria for the membership, and the category 1 networks also represent in a coordinating group. But I'm not going to read all of these, but as you can see, we have the special activity and age networks and groups, and then there is these disease specific networks, and then we have the national networks. and the other networks which have the other expertise in clinical methodology, or like the European Young Persons Advisory Group, or as I said, the EPTRI and other groups, and TEDI and so on. Can you press the keys? So total we have 54 networks currently regarding all these categories, and then we have 20 of these category 1 networks. Thank you. So the next slide. The coordinating group is the operational center of Imprima, and it's the forum for communication and contributing a short and long-term strategy for the network itself, solving operational and scientific issues, and organizing and establishing new working groups and so on. This coordinating group reports to Pediatric committee, which acts as a scientific committee for the Imprima. The coordinating group consists active participants from category 1 networks, currently from 18 networks, and then we have these 2 PDCO members in the group. Now after Brexit, there has been a little bit changes also in an Imprima composition regarding the speaking and voting rights. So there will be a new statement for our mandate, so that only European or European Economy Area networks shall become full members with speaking and voting rights in the coordinating group. Then we have the specialty age groups and specialty activity groups and organizations, and they can be also observers in the group. The Imprima Secretariat will provide the secretariat for these meetings, and it's co-chaired with this elected chair among the members and also in the EMA. The EU Commission members, representatives can also join this meeting as observers, and the industry can be invited as observers to attend these meetings. Next slide, please. The current links to the other projects and initiatives are listed here. Mainly, I'm not going to read all of these, but as you can see, the main connection is so that they are members of the Imprima or they're members of the coordination group. There is a representation in the coordination group, and so on. So we are linking quite many of the current European networks and groups, the academic groups and initiatives, so that we have quite extensive presentation of all of these, and we have a extensive connection or more widely to the regulatory authorities or competent authorities also. And I put it here, the EPTRI to the end. So this is the potential new link, and currently it's represented by the members of the coordinating group via TEDI network. Next slide. So the landscape, very briefly, only 3 slides now anymore. So we can look, this is very old picture, but if we look this kind of a focus grouping, Imprima, I have put it these dot lines here as a multi-stakeholder collaboration group, and then we have these different initiatives which are clinical or methodological or translational, or more administrative ones. But regarding the focus groups, what we serve, the S is sponsored and the A is academic. So you can see here that different initiatives and projects, they have a little bit different focus groups. And then we have various other associations and multi-stakeholder groups which can have the effect and say the many of the public statements and so on. And we need to take care of all these voices and hear all these voices because they are representing different groups and from different point of view. Next slide. And this is the other way to look at this is modified. I kind of captured this table from Mark Turner, and I thank now that I can use this table, but I have a little bit modified it to my purposes, so that if you look these tables, and the Mark had divided this very a good way how these could be also structured, looking the activities, what different networks and initiatives are focusing on. So we can easily see that, for example, the Imprima, we are not directly involved in designing our trials or delivering our trials, of course, because we are the regulatory authority, and no trials and not funded. And similarly, I see the Young Persons Advisory Group, they are also very much supporting and giving the advice for the delivery of trials, but itself, they don't actually do the clinical trials themselves. So this is one way to put this, and there's this EPTRI that you are able to do both industry and academic trials and development of biomarkers and methods and so on, but are not, to my understanding, not focusing on designing our trials or delivering the trials, because it's preclinical and translational. So this is one way to look these different landscape projects. Next slide. And this is also the loan from the PEDGRAN Sustainability Board meeting. This is the slide from the Jacques de Monte, and this was a really good slide. That is why I loaned this for this purpose, because based on this kind of a structure of different stages of drug development and conducting the trials, it's easy to look the Imprima focus area of this process. We are more like in this part of the conducting the trials and planning and designing the trials together with the networks, and as the EMA is more involved in this preclinical and trial design development with the companies, it's kind of this part of the development line. So this is one way to look this differentiation, and here is the EPTRI part, but we could see that there's a link, of course, with the other initiatives with the EPTRI supporting the trial design part. Next slide, please. And that is it. Hopefully I didn't speak too much. This is my hospital, New Children's Hospital, and very proud of it, because it was awarded a architectural prize in 2019.
And
Thank you.
Finland, Untitled Pediatric a luat un premiu pentru arhitectură.
Thank you, Pirko. It was really a wonderful presentation. Thanks a lot. And EPTRI will be very happy to consider Imprema as one of the main relevant framework context to meet stakeholders and to strengthen efforts and discuss strategies for future development of pediatric research.